in this video, we're going to talk about what you need, documents you need to prove or to show when you're sponsoring someone, what you need to sponsor a visitor. This can work either way. It could be that you live abroad and you're sponsoring the person from one country, your home country, to come visit you, or a different country. Or you both live in the same country, but you are still paying for their trip abroad. Now, you would have in most cases where children would sponsor their parents, or you would have where all parents too would sponsor their children. The same applies for brothers and sisters and aunties and uncles. For whatever reason, there are circumstances where people sponsor people. Most times it's because maybe the applicants first are not able to pay for the trip and they have compelling reasons to travel. Or secondly, even though they can afford to pay for a trip, it could be that you have just volunteered, benevolent, to pay for their trip, and you would be handling most of the expense. Now, you also have circumstances where husbands, sponsor their wives, or the wives, sponsor their husbands. So we're going to address each and every one of the scenarios that I have indicated here. Now, what are the documents, that you need to prove when you are sponsoring someone financially? Now, of course, the first thing, we all know what it is. It is the bank statement. Yes, you need to show that you need to prove that you have an income, and then you have savings of any sort that shows that you would be the one paying for their trip. Now, the bank statement that you provide must show that you have sufficient funds to cater for that trip, and also enough for you to take care of yourself. Because if you're sponsoring, if you have enough to sponsor someone else, it means you have to keep some for yourself. So it won't be, for example, a trip costs 2 million naira. You're sponsoring a sister, the trip is 2 million naira, and then you have a bank account that shows the trip is 2 million naira. Okay, after you sponsor your sister, what is going to be left of you? So you do want to show a bank account that has sufficient funds. Now, if you don't want to attach your bank statement as proof of funds, you can transfer that fund, transfer the funds to whoever you're sponsoring, if you trust them. Because I've seen, I've read of instances where people, someone transferred money to a family member, to indicate that they were sponsoring their trip, and then the family member just spent all that money. Now, that wasn't nice. So if it's someone that you can trust, you can go ahead and transfer that money to them. But of course, whoever you're transferring the money to has to include a cover letter explaining the source of the funds, and then you too can include an introduction letter stating why you are paying, your relationship with this person, and why you're paying for their trip. Now, when I'm making visa applications, I always like to go for an overkill. What do I mean by that? I always leave no room for doubt. I am upfront. Even the things that I consider relevant, I just put it up front. So I answer every questions that I perceive you may have regarding that visa application, just so you would not deny my visa application. Do you get what I'm going with that? I'm going to go into details and explain what I am talking about. Now, when you're sponsoring someone, I want you to understand that the whole idea of tourism is to encourage people to bring their funds, in this case, their money, from one country to spend in another country. Countries like that when they know that you are bringing your money to spend. Now, when you have a circumstance where you are abroad and then you're sponsoring someone you're using the money from your country to sponsor someone, in a different country to come, and in this case, maybe like a third world country, to come to your country, then you need to prove that why you're sponsoring their trip. You need to establish your relationship with this person that you're sponsoring, their trip. Now, if it's your mother that you're sponsoring the trip, that's simple. If it's the father, if it's the husband, if it's the wife, that's simple. If it's the brother, if it's the sister, you need to explain why you are the one paying for the trip. And then you would ask me, how can you explain that? That would be in your cover letter. It is in this cover letter that you would explain your relationship with whoever you are sponsoring. If you're at home and then you're sponsoring your sister, you could say maybe it's your younger sister, and then you had promised that if she, graduated with, let's say, a first class or a 2-1, that you would pay for her holiday, to XYZ destination. That's a valid reason. It could be that they are attending your sister's wedding, or they are attending a wedding. You want to go, but you cannot be there, so you're sponsoring her so she could go. It could be a father, who your father promised to give you a vacation, to pay for your vacation, and they're doing that. It could be a mother, the same thing applies. The husband and the wife. The husband cannot go on the trip, but of course he's sponsoring the wife, or maybe they are both traveling together. You need to explain these details in your cover letter. Do not assume that, they should be able to understand. If you leave so much to chance, then you're gambling, But when you attach a cover letter and state this fact, then you are putting all your cards on the table, and that's a very good thing, and you should consider doing. So we have talked about the bank statement, and we've talked about the introduction letter. What else should you include in that application to improve the chances of your, whoever you're sponsoring, getting a visa? You can also attach a proof of where you work, showing, okay, yes, this is where you work, this is the salary you get, the bank account you're attaching, shows that monthly salary comes into your account, and then you can afford to pay for this trip, and then you can also afford to survive long after this person travels. Now, if you're sponsoring someone, then I want to believe that you do trust this person, and you want to vouch for them because you're trying to improve their chances, of getting a visa. You want to vouch for them in the cover letter that they do, and then maybe, states as much as that the ties that they have to their home country, the fact that that trip is temporary, and then they would be returning home at the end of that trip. So you do want to vouch for them in your cover letter. And then possibly, if you are abroad and then you're sponsoring someone to come and visit you, then feel free to include an itinerary to show what you would be doing, the places you would go, the activities you would be engaging in when this person visits you. Now, another thing you want to include is, because if you're sponsoring them and then they're staying with you, you want to include a proof of, where you reside. It could be a proof of, your rental, your rent, or or your lease agreement, just something that shows that, yes, they have a place to stay, which is where you stay, and then you would just improve, show credibility in this case, and also improve their chances. So another thing you want to attach is your passport data page. If you want to go for an overkill, like, it's not a deal breaker if you don't attach, but of course, imagine that you're introducing yourself in a letter and saying this is who. Normally, when you're introducing yourself and then you're a right standing person, you just include your passport number. This is my name, this is my passport number, this is where I live. And then if you're a citizen of that country, you do want to include the data page, a copy of the data page of your own passport, just to show, like I said, it would show credibility, and it would also improve the applicant's chances of getting a visa. So I hope that this was useful and valuable. You found it useful. If you did like it, hit the like button, and then subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like this. So thank you very much for sticking with me.